What are the religious judgments? There's 5 of them. Do you know the 5 judgments? Yeah. I'll give you the first one. Obligatory. All right. So the 5 judgments are, here's someone says, obligatory, prohibited, sunnah, disliked, and valid, no. So the 5 judgments are, say, mubah. Yes, that's the 5th one. Obligatory, prohibited, sunnah, disliked, and mubah. All right, those are the 5 that have been mentioned here from the audience. So, obligatory, farad or wajib. Prohibited, haram or mahzur. Sunnah, yani recommended. Sunnah or mustahab or nafl or nafila or nafl yani. Or mandub. There's a lot of words for it. Disliked, makruh, or you might say avoided. And permitted, that's mubah, permitted, or you might say indifferent. All right, so those are the 5 judgments. You said valid. That's not one of the 5 judgments. Yeah, those mean 2 different things because something could be valid without being permissible. Let's look at this list of judgments. Let's look at the words we're going to use, and let's look at how we're going to arrange them so that that stays in your memory, inshallah. And also you're taking notes. So if you do it that way, then what did you do? You put the 2 cases that are mandatory together. Obligatory and prohibited, meaning mandatory to do, mandatory to avoid. And then recommended and disliked. Then you put the 2 cases that have some recommendation in them. Recommended to do, recommended to avoid. And then indifferent, which is none of the above. Yani, it's in the middle. So let's just use English words first here. Obligatory, recommended, prohibited, disliked or avoided, and indifferent. So look at the way I just gave you that list. I'm going to give you the list again in a different way, though. How I just gave you that list. I said obligatory, then recommended, then prohibited, then disliked, then indifferent. So the way I just gave you that list, yani, obligatory is what you have to do. Recommended is what you should do. Forbidden is what you cannot do. Disliked or avoided is what you should not do. Yani, better not to, but not haram. And then indifferent is none of those. Means whether you do or you don't do. Or we can take the same 5, we can arrange them in a different way. We can say obligatory, recommended, indifferent, disliked, and prohibited. Same 5, different order. Obligatory, recommended, indifferent, disliked, and prohibited. In this way, you have more of a scale, a balance, more of a balance. Because in this way, what did we do? We put obligatory at one end, and we put forbidden at the polar opposite end. Then next to obligatory, going next towards the middle, is recommended. And next to forbidden, going towards the middle, is disliked. And then in the middle is indifferent, because indifferent really is in the middle. Yani, I'm just sticking here so that this can stick to you. Mubah is not makruh. Mubah is indifferent. Makruh is disliked. That means avoided. I'm going to define the words for you clearly, inshallah. Okay, yeah, and I'm just sticking here and repeating this in different ways so that you never forget for the rest of your life, inshallah, those 5 judgments. Okay, so before we move on, 2 things left. The Arabic words for these Actually, three things. And their actual definitions. Let's take their actual definitions first. Then there's a third thing. Their actual definitions. So let's go with the scale. Let's go with the balance. Obligatory. That which, if you don't do it, you deserve punishment. Or, yeah, and if you do it, you deserve reward. Yani, you can say it the other way. That which, if you do it, you deserve reward, and if you don't do it, you deserve punishment. Just occurs to me to say it the other way, though. Obligatory. That which, if you don't do it, you deserve punishment, and if you do it, you deserve reward. Because obligatory means you can't leave it out. Yani, that's what the word means. Something you can't not do. And right here, if you do it, you deserve reward. That's assuming that you did what makes the reward valid. So when we say if you do it, you deserve reward, that open statement right there is not delving into the detail of what makes the deed rewardable each time. Are we talking about a worship? Are we talking about a dealing? So we're not going that far. Obligatory. If you don't do it, you deserve punishment. If you do it, you deserve reward. Recommended. If you do it, you deserve reward. Now, recommended means something you should do. If you do it, you deserve reward. If you don't do it, there's no punishment. Permissible or permitted, but I really prefer personally indifferent. It is that which, whether you do it or you do not do it, there is no reward or punishment. So when we listed it in such a way that it came at the end of the list, then the mubah is none of the above. Whether you do it or you don't do it, there's no reward and there's no punishment. Yeah, like sitting down or standing up. Because all of those are deeds of yours, or eating an apple instead of an orange. All of those are deeds of yours. Yani, these judgments pertain to your actions. When someone asks for a religious judgment, it means what's the judgment for such and such action? What's the judgment for such and such saying? What's the judgment for such and such procedure? And then you're going to give them one of these five. Disliked. And a lot of times the word avoided fits here. Not all the time, though. Dislike slash avoided. As far as the sentence is concerned, you might be using the sentence saying makruh. The word avoid works very well in some sentences for the word makruh. It is that which, if you don't do it, there's reward. And if you do it, there's no punishment. And prohibited or forbidden is that which, if you do it, you deserve punishment. And if you don't do it, you deserve reward. We can even condense the words more. I'm going to say it again with more condensed words. Obligatory. Punishable if you avoid it and rewardable if you do it. Recommended. Rewardable if you do it, not punishable if you avoid it. Indifferent. Neither rewardable nor punishable whether done or avoided. Disliked. Rewardable when avoided and not punishable if committed or if done. And forbidden. Punishable if done and not and rewardable if avoided. Punishable if done and rewardable if avoided. And the actual Arabic words are, I'll write them out here too. Wajib or fard for obligatory. And yes, followed with a bod. Sunnah or mandub or mustahab or nafl is for recommended. And mubah, permitted or indifferent. Makruh is for disliked or avoided. And haram or mahzur for forbidden or prohibited. Mahzur, that's a va, dh there. Va, mahzur. So those are your 5 judgments. Al-Ahkam Al-Khamsah. Now the third thing is that there's 2 more judgments that the scholars mention often, which are valid and invalid. If you count valid and invalid as separate judgments, then you're going to have 7 judgments. If you incorporate valid and invalid into the ones we already talked about, you're only going to have 5 judgments. And this is the most accurate way to count them without repetition, that is. So once you pull out valid and invalid and make them their own judgments, that's going to be making you repeat something from the previous 5 judgments. Valid and invalid in reality go back to the 5 judgments, but it is worthwhile to separate them and mention them distinctly for the sake of comprehension. Valid means what is recognized by the religious law, and invalid is not recognized by the religious law. These 2 go back to the first 5 judgments, because it's haram to do an invalid deal. And as for a valid deal, it might be obligatory, or it might be recommended, or it might be permitted, yani indifferent, or it might be disliked, or it might even be haram. Valid but haram.